Hello, this is Alan Wheeler, and lately I've been making videos on tarot and spirituality. And the topic today, the title will be something like Alchemical Tarot meets Psychic $1 Million Challenge. And I'll explain that in just a minute. Um, First, lately I've also been in the custom of introducing something from my altar, and uh, here I have some seashells that were collected back in March, um, as I remember, because I was just beginning to go through the throes and agony of getting rid of gout. The medication actually caused it to flare up worse for about 5 months, and it was quite a experience of initiation. But at the same time, uh, my wife and kids collected these and gave me some of their collection. And during that time, I was waiting, um, and because of my obsessive nature and a little bit of emotional struggle, waiting for my first professional tarot reading that I'd ever had. Um, and I wasn't sure if I'd asked a good question and um, so on. But I have these set on my altar as a memory of this time of my life, because it was our first family vacation in years to the beach. Um, Although we lived about a 15-minute walk from the beach in China, um, even though there again we only got down there 2 or 3 times a year, um, working there. Uh, but it's a nice memory of that vacation we had in March. Now I have them setting on the altar in front of images of Aphrodite here, and also Freya, who I'm told is the party girl of the Norse pantheon. And also, although Freya is a goddess of love and war, Aphrodite is more a goddess of love, but it's said that she was formed from the sea foam, and from Zeus. So that's something here on my altar. Well, let me get into the um, introduction here. I was watching a lecture, a YouTube video, but it was a lecture at the Theosophical Society on esotericism. The title was something like Secret Knowledge Through the Ages. And it was very interesting, but at the end, a question came from a Yale professor who was in the audience. And he asked, why has no one, if this talk of magic is real, he said, why has no one made $1 million from magic? He said Yale has a $1 million challenge for someone to come into the laboratory and produce a psychic effect. Similarly, the Amazing Randy and other places offer these $1 million challenges. And so the question was, why don't we see it done? And there was a good response from the lecturer. One of his responses was, that's not how anyone makes money. And the implication was, magic doesn't work like that under those lab conditions, perhaps. Uh, Also, I kind of flipped the challenge after thinking about it. I said, but wait a minute, does science work in the temple or in the art studio for that matter? Um, can we make art and poetry and beauty in a test tube? Um, can we put love or commitment, the ethos of um, trust in people and faith, can we put that in a potion? Although I think both science and magic have tried to make love potions, perhaps. Um, but can we put morality into a physics equation? And so on. So I kind of flipped the challenge, but my question coming to the alchemical tarot today, and I drew one rune and three tarot cards to answer this, um, is how do we deal with these, the challenge and the reverse challenge in a way? The rune I drew was Nodhees, and I drew it out so we could see it better here on screen. And it means need or what is lacking. And so upon reflection, I thought that perhaps the challenge to for a psychic to perform in the laboratory or for the magic spell to work under test conditions, uh, or the reverse challenge for science to do spiritual things or um, do the work of art or morality, um, of love and trust. So perhaps the challenge and the reverse challenge actually show what is lacking, um, in the other. The challenge from one to the other reveals something, a need or a lack that each has. Interestingly, the first card that I drew from um, the Alchemical Tarot by Robert M. Place, and this is the fourth edition. The colors have been toned down a bit, muted in this edition, and so the artwork is very beautiful here. But the card I pulled was the Tower, and rather than a large structure, Robert Place has brought it down to life size here, but we still have the lightning striking the alchemical vessels. So we still get the idea of the familiar shakedown, the falling apart. Um, the center cannot hold. So something, um, we have the same energy or meaning in the card, although the display is a little different than usual. And so um, we also see here the alchemical meaning, the separation of the red and the white. It's the beginning of the albedo stage in the alchemical process. And the card before the devil shows coagulation as the um, emperor and empress come together there in one body. And here we see the separation in this stage, the beginning of this part of the alchemical process. But in answer to my question, this familiar shakedown, this familiar meaning, um, where the lightning strikes almost like illumination, almost like enlightenment, and old ideas get shaken up, um, in a sense, this challenge that I'm asking about removes superstition or false expectations from the psychic or the witch. Um, it causes us to take a close look, and reveal what is really supernatural. So, in the example given by the Yale professor, um, why aren't these psychics instantly rich? or instantly millionaires? And the answer from the lecturer was that's not how any money is made. And so I assume he's thinking there's sowing and reaping, whether it's aided by science or aided by magic. The um, that's not a uh, that's not how the process works, basically. Um, Likewise, on the reverse challenge, um, the tower kind of shows how the challenge removes false claims and gives science some humility. So when science starts to turn itself into a religion, as some people have accused it of, if you Google scientism, you can see some information about that. But if science claims to be God, to be able to uh, answer all questions, um, then we get reductionism, don't we? And so the tower reminds us that these challenges and the reverse challenges um, do some real work, do some real shaking up that needs to be done. Now, the next card that I drew from the Alchemical Tarot was the Magician, and we can tell from the wings on his headgear there and the caduceus that he holds, those uh, twin serpents wrapped, the red and white serpent wrapped there, and from the glyph here for Mercury, we can tell this is Hermes. Um, and he's in the familiar position, holding his hands as above, so below. And we see the four elements all here: um, fire, air, water, earth, in somewhat of a different way from many traditional tarot cards, but they're all here showing that synthesis of this fifth element in the major arcana. And so he does show this synthesis, and I think um, this card is the balance to the Tower card, which shows the separation um, of the challenge. But this also shows how there's a union of art and science in a way, a union of the spiritual and the material realms. Arthur C. Clarke said that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. So when my father was a kid and his father took him to see one of the early TV sets on sale, it was like magic to them. And so, um, in a sense, magic is a technology, and um, nowhere is it seen as well as in alchemy, the attempt to find scientific, almost scientific principles in in the realm of spirituality. So we also see it in a case like Archimedes, who, as he got into the bathtub, realized in a flash of insight how density could be calculated um, of an irregularly shaped object, as he saw that water displaced, and he shouted, "Eureka!" The familiar story. But all fields of knowledge and skill, um, from playing chess to physics, at the advanced levels, they rely on much more than simple reason and empiricism. There's a flash of intuition and insight that comes from vast experience, and sometimes we don't know how we do it. So this magical-like flow we see in the realms of art and science, in spiritualism and materialism both. So I think the magician reminds us that they can be complementary. The last card that I drew that also provided a very satisfying reflection for me to this question was the Seven of Cups. And the Alchemical Tarot version is especially helpful, as we see the best choice here is this golden cup that has the glyph of the Anima Mundi. Now many versions of the Seven of Cups show this kind of dreamlike, this phantoms filling the cups, the imagination that can be in the light, the good brainstorming and the good dreaming that is needed in life, or the nightmarish phantom of over getting too caught up in imagination and feelings. But here, it focuses on the choice, and it always reminds me of the scene from the I think it's called The Last Crusade, in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Near the end of that movie, the guardian, the knight who guarded the Holy Grail, put a whole bunch of cups on display, and some were ornate and rich, and some were humble and carved of wood and things, all different cups. And he said, which one is the Holy Grail? And Indiana Jones picked out one and said, this is the cup of a carpenter. And it was a very humble cup. And the famous line, you have chosen wisely. So this cup shows in our dreaming, in our inventing, this is very important to both art and science, to spirituality, and working with material things. The important role of intuition and imagination in choosing wisely. And here we see the Anima Mundi there. Now, if you want to look at it in a very scientific sense, we still have to form hypotheses and maybe use the process of elimination to prove or disprove our hypothesis and arrive at a theory or even a law of science. And so this card is very good at showing that that we have either a synthesis or a complementary role that these things play. So again, what is needed? These challenges, like any good debate or dialectic, actually, if we don't become just combative and defensive, they actually can lead us to a good answer here. What is needed? Well, art meets a need. Science meets a need. Spirituality meets needs. And the focus on the material meets needs. And so I think this is nicely brought out by the Tower, the Magician card, and the Seven of Cups in this reading. Well, this has been about 20 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and close and then upload this video. Thank you so much if you watched through it. And as always, I hope you feel connection, visceral and strong in your relationships, in the real world, in the online communities, as well as in your spiritual path, whatever that might be. Thanks again for watching.